Hi, welcome to my workshop. Today I'm going to have a go at making some pens. Over the years I've made hundreds and I thought it's about time I got it down on video as to the tools required and the processes involved. So without further ado, let's crack on and get these things made. So what equipment do I need to be able to turn pens? To start with, you need a universal pen mandrel. This is 2 Moss taper to match my headstock. You also need a revolving centre which goes in your tailstock. Most loads already come with this, so you shouldn't need to have to buy anything extra. First thing you're going to need is your pen kit. In this case, this is a Sierra upgrade gold in Trivalent Chrome. Whilst getting your pen kit, it's important that you also purchase the correct size brushes that go with this particular kit. Why is that? Is because these brushes serve 2 purposes. Firstly, they fit the brass tube provided in your kit. They also will enable any size tube to be mounted onto the universal pen mandrel. External diameter of the bush matches that of the external diameter of your the shiny part of your pen kit. So that's the nib, so that's the same diameter as that. In a similar way, on the top of this particular pen, the diameter of the ring there is the same diameter as this. The next thing to decide is what do you want your pen body to be made out of. You've got obviously a selection of woods, and there are absolutely hundreds of choices, or you could go to the likes of acrylics. I'm not covering acrylics in this video, but that is another option for you. The thing you're going to need is a drill bit of the right diameter to match that of your brass tube provided in your pen kit. I like to use these Colt drills. They give a nice clean cut. They've got a point to get you started, and they're nice and sharp, and they work really well. With our blank, we need to cut it down first to be slightly bigger than our brass tube, like so. So about a couple of mil longer on either end. Next, we need to hold our blank on the lathe, and therefore I use my standard chuck and then just hold it in the jaws. You can get different jaws, special jaws specifically for pen making, but to be fair, I've never tried and never bothered. These work quite well, so you could use some slightly longer jaws such as these type of thing, but to be fair, this one works quite well. We're going to need to glue the brass tube inside our piece of wood, so therefore I'd recommend you using the Type Bond polyurethane liquid glue. It expands and as it dries, and it basically goes into all the little nooks and crannies and really securely attaches that brass tube inside your piece of wood. We're going to need to apply glue onto our tube, and we then need to insert it into our wooden blank. The thing that I found most suitable for this is it's actually an old file, tapered file, which the brass tube quite nicely sits in, and because it's tapered, it basically allows me to use it for many different types of tube, different sizes, so it's quite universal. So some sort of device like this will be used, which I'll show you later in the process of applying the glue. The next thing you're going to need as part of the process is a reamer. Now the reamer is used for trimming down the end of a blank down to the same length as the brass tube. Your reamer needs to be approximately the same diameter as your brass tube, so it fits inside. This one is slightly smaller than this particular tube, but it does it quite nicely. What it'll do is it'll trim off the end of the wood nice and square and right angled to our brass tube. This particular reamer is comes in with 4 different sizes, so that allows me to use it on different types of pens. For turning pens, you don't really need anything major as far as when it comes down to your chisels. I tend to use just a standard, rather old and, as you can see, rather short spindle buffing gouge. I find that to work quite suitably. Alternatively, you could use a standard spindle gouge. You could also, if you're feeling brave, use a scoop chisel. The choice is yours, whatever you feel most comfortable with. You can appreciate when turning the pen, you're going to need to apply various finishes to it. So to start off with, we're just going to be using standard abrasives of the various different grits. You also, I would recommend using these these abrasives. Your green is 400, your red is 800, and your amber is 1000. During the process, we'll be using some cellulose sanding sealer. The finish I like to use on the pens is the melamine gloss lacquer. It enables you to apply several very thin coats and gradually build up. Probably 2 or 3 coats is sufficient. The beauty with this stuff is that it will harden over a period of weeks to give a really hard wearing finish. I found this to be really good. A part of the process of applying the melamine lacquer, once it's dry, I then go over it with some burnishing cream, which then brings it up to a nice shine. The likes of the burnishing cream and the sort of sanding sealer, I tend to use the safety cloths to apply it. I showed you earlier the pen mandrel. I've since changed the way that I use it. Instead of the revolving centre that goes in the end, because you need to be able to adjust depending on whether you're doing one pen blank or 2 pen blanks. This needs to adjust, so you're constantly having to adjust this depending on what you need to do. I've gone away from using that system. I now use this gadget. It's a rotating centre, and this just goes into your tailstock, and you just bring your tailstock up. It makes the process a hell of a lot quicker, and you don't have to faff about with the nailed nut, and there should be like a little locking nut, but I seem to have lost that. I've now set up my chuck, the right size drill for the particular tube in the Jacobs chuck, and I've cut on the bandsaw the blank to the right size. Shoving that into the chuck, bring up the tailstock, get that roughly in the centre. Okay, locked off. Okay, and now holding the chuck, make sure the speed on the lathes turned down, your safety goggles on, and off we go. Okay, so next stage is we've got our brass tube, okay, which start with what we need to do is just with a piece of wire wool, just clean off the outside edge. all it's doing is just removing any residue, and also it just gives a slight key for the glue to adhere to. So let's put the tube on there. See that? Then if you put too much on, it's just going to all come off the ends. So just put some of that on your tube. Get our piece of wood. Okay, and then what to do is just twist it round, sort of move it in and out, and then turn it around and do the same the other end. So we get a good coating of glue all the way through. Now remember I said that this glue will expand. So we're going to push this in, and you can see the tube just coming into view, and just clean off any excess off the ends for now, and that's it. And then leave that somewhere. Just be careful where you leave it, because it might stick to the actual table. Here's one of the blanks I've done. As you can see, the glue is all foamed up, but I need to be able to get the end sort of boring tool thing in there. So I just need to just carefully remove any excess glue, so you can actually get the thing to go in. Next bit is just mounting it into the vise. I've got the bit that I showed you yesterday on the drill. So what I'm going to do is just drill down. Can you see it's just taking away that thing? And what I do is I need to get down so I can just see the brass tube. Do them on the other end. You want to make sure that you don't take any length of the tube away. Right, so if you go down there too heavy with the drill and you start taking away the actual brass tube, when you come to assemble a pen later, then you might find problems, because the length is obviously it's shortened and it doesn't quite go back together so nicely. So I'll just got one more little spin on that. That's it. It's all nicely shiny now. Start off with the pen mandrel. Wants to go into the chuck. I'm putting the revolving centre I showed you yesterday into the end of the chuck. You can't see that, it's just slightly off camera at the moment, but it's there. See, blank with another one. Put that in. Bring that up. Obviously make sure that all turns freely. That's tight. As you can see, the actual turning process doesn't take very long at all. All done, that case was all just done with a roughing gouge. I'm now ready to do some sanding. So importantly, we don't want trapped fingers, so get rid of my tool rest out of the way. Don't want that. I'm going to be sanding, so let's get a bit of dust extraction in place. That's all ready to go. Right, sandpapers wise, so it's just a block of wood with different sandpapers on, right on the back number thing. So once I keep them in order on here, kind of works for me. So I'll be using that. I'll be starting at about 180, going up to 600, and then going up to 1,000 set of these. So I don't want to incur lots of heat in this. So again, turn my speed down, obviously to make sure everything's still locked off, which it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of this is just going to be some standard chestnut sanding sealer. I'll put a little bit of that on. Watch the grain pop out. Then you just love it when you do that. Don't put too much on. Lovely colour, lovely colour. Right, so I'll now just let that dry. Let's get it spinning. Okay, we're now on 320. Just sort of circular, very light circular. I haven't got the dust extractor on now. It's hardly any much coming off it. The line in the middle there. Very light. You can feel that it's nice and smooth. Right, so we're up to 400. Several light coats, and what we'll do is in between coats we will just take off the the rough bits, called denibbing. It's not, there is no such word as denibbing, but something that Chestnut referred to recently in a news post, and it's basically just using a 1000 will do it. It will just take off any of the rough bits. So we'll get on with that. A little tiny bit tacky. Just watch it. Obviously, if it is tacky, you don't get your fingerprints put on it, stuck on it. Just let it dry a little bit more, and then once that's dry, if you have got marks on it, you just need to take them off. So all we're going to do to start with is we're just going to take this off here. Get the sandpaper out of the way. Right. What will happen is the bushes sometimes will get stuck to this one's fine. Right, sometimes they'll get stuck in, depends on how much lacquer you've used. Alright, so take this one off. So you can see some of that. Let's take these tubes out. So I mentioned about how thick the wood is. It's not very thick, is it? A mil, probably millimetre, if that. So this is now dry. Last thing I had was the melamine lacquer. So what I'm going to do is I've got some of the burnishing cream with a piece of safety cloth. What I'm going to do is just rub that over it, just gently underneath. Start with. Right, now I'm going to turn the lathe on. Again, just make sure it's. Give a speed on it. Now using the same wet patch as we just used, just go over it. Let it work its magic. Now I'm going to find a dry bit. and watch it come up. Nice and shiny. So basically that now is all the turning and finishing process of certainly of the Sierra pen. Start off with, okay, we're gonna, if you insert with the spring on the end into the body of your pen, then your mechanism just goes in, and these two parts screw together. And then if I twist, hold one end and there and twist, we'll see the nib coming out at the end. Okay, twist it back, it goes. Right, so it makes sense that if you have to change the ink in the pen any time, you need to be able to get to this part of the pen. So that means that our blank doesn't actually attach onto that end at all. Nothing's holding it in place. It's all being done with this top. So with this particular pen, we don't have to do anything further with that piece. All we're needing to do is push these two parts together. So what we'll do is we're going to put this in. I'm just going to use a standard vise, which I'll set the camera up on that in a minute, and we're going to push the thing together. Now, something to be just careful of is when we come to push the two bits together, the clip, this clip here, sometimes can be a little bit sharp. So what I've found of the solution to it is a small piece of plastic tubing. I can't remember where I got it. I think one of the pen kits I had many years ago had some of these plastic sleeves over the clip, so I've continued to use it. So that's nice piece of plastic. So when I push this, and obviously I'm going to push this into here, so just have a look at your grain and your pattern, and maybe, do I want it that way round, do I want it that way, and just choose which end you're going to go in. So now when you just get that started in there, when we push it together, the clip then doesn't scratch down the body of the piece of wood. I've used this vise quite a few times for this, and this is obviously rounded at the tip. There's actually a bit of a rounded bit inside my vise now, so I'm just going to put that in there. I've got the plastic tube on the thing. What I'm going to do is just gently wind the two things together. Nicely pushed together, and whether you can see the brass ferrule up here is, it's the right size. The blank, so the turn piece is the right diameter. It's not too big or too small. If you hadn't gone down to the same size of the bush, it's going to be sort of protruding at the top, maybe the size of those rings that you can see. But basically that's good. Right, so I can now take the plastic tube off, and then we get the rest of the pen, and we just push this bit over there, just gently push it together. There we have our pen. This one also will unscrew from there. Okay, now we put it together, and that's how you get you obviously change your ink cartridge, your ink. All right, looks a nice looking pen. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.